The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to this morning's role play session with your host, James McDonald.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And I'd like to start by welcoming our participants to our role play session here today, and particularly those of you who are joining us for the very first time from the super conference that we just had last weekend. It was great to see everybody and get started in the coaching program. Now, Craig and I are excited for today's webinar because what you're going to discover, as many of you already have, is that lead conversion over the phone is the part of the system that, although it requires the highest degree of skill, it's also what makes you the most money. And I know that might sound kind of odd, but it really is true. In other words, the better you are on the phone, the less leads you need to generate, which means you get more out of fewer leads if you're good on the phone. If you aren't good on the phone, you need hundreds and hundreds of leads to get anywhere. And the problem is generating hundreds and hundreds of leads is expensive. Generating fewer leads is a lot less expensive. Not only that, but being good on the phone and being able to do more with fewer leads means it's less time consuming. To follow up with 100 prospects to book one appointment is extremely time consuming. To follow up with 5 prospects to book one appointment takes a lot less time. So there's the opportunity to really make a lot of money with the system falls into how good you are on the phone converting the leads that you've generated. And that's why for almost 2 decades now, we've been doing this role play session with our coaching members. I always think of it as the equivalent of a professional golfer practicing, 3-foot putts. They never stop. It's not like they say, oh, I've got this down. They're always going to continue forever to practice and refine what they do every day over and over and over and over again, so that they can only get better at what they do over and over and over again. And that is the universal callback script. So I'm super excited for those of you that are on here for the very first time. For those of you that are on the role play session here that have already progressed with it, this is going to be review, but it's good for you. It's always good for you to get an overview of how the universal script works. The better you understand how it works, the better you'll be at using the script, the more natural the script will sound, and the more likely it is that you'll get to that mastery level. And I define that mastery level of the point where you are having a conversation with your prospect and you can barely recognize the fact that you're actually following a very systemized script because it's just such natural. It's very conversational. It just flows out of you completely naturally. That is when you've reached mastery level with the universal callback script. And so what we're going to do here this morning is we're going to break down the script. I just really want everyone to understand how it works so that you're comfortable with it. We want to get rid of any phone fear that anybody has. Remember this, when you're picking up the phone and calling a prospect, the only reason you're doing that is because they contacted you first. You're never, ever going to make a cold call. You're never going to call someone who didn't ask you for information first. Somebody who called into your hotline and hung up, you're never going to call them. Never. Someone who went onto your webpage and didn't leave any contact information, you're never, ever going to call them ever. They're not a prospect. You are only going to follow up with those prospects who have, number one, asked you for real estate information, and number two, voluntarily given up their contact information. And if they didn't do those two things, you will never, ever call them. You're only following up with real prospects. A real prospect asked for real estate information and gave up their anonymity in order to get it. That way, your mindset when you're calling these prospects back is that I'm only calling back prospects who are very, very motivated. And I know they're very motivated because of what they did. And over time, this begins to really change your mindset. You realize that when you're making cold calls and you're calling, just human beings who have done nothing to indicate a motivation to buy or sell real estate, you're not greeted with any kind of appreciation at all. However, when you're calling back prospects who have asked you for information, given up their contact details, and you've provided them with that very information that they asked for, you're going to be greeted with appreciation. And when you start to hear thank you over and over and over again from the prospects that you're calling, it begins over time to change your mindset, and you no longer have phone fear. As a matter of fact, sitting down and making 10, 15, 20 follow-up calls with prospects isn't a dreaded task, because you actually get somewhere. Why do you get somewhere? 2 reasons. 1, you're following up with motivated real prospects. Number 2, you are armed with the skills of exactly what to say to the prospect to determine their timing and motivation. And if appropriate, you know exactly what to say to book a face-to-face appointment. You know, something that Craig says frequently is that for most of you, if you just got face-to-face with more prospects more frequently, just that alone, you'd make a whole lot more money. So what is the purpose of this universal callback script? Well, ultimately, it's to get face-to-face with more prospects, more appropriate prospects. We don't want to get face-to-face with everybody. We want to get face-to-face with those prospects that represent, the kind of prospects that we'd like to meet with. They represent a buyer or a seller. How do we determine that? We're going to use the universal script. So here's how we're going to start off, okay? Before we do any role-playing with anybody, the way we're going to start off is by overviewing the universal script here. And it all begins with the introduction. In the introduction, it's very important that all in one breath we answer the question that the prospect is thinking, which is, who are you and why are you bothering me? And we're going to answer this in such a clever way that the prospect is actually going to appreciate our phone call. So in the beginning, the prospect's thinking, who are you and why are you bugging me? And we're going to turn that around so that instead of thinking, who are you and why are you bothering me, they're going to be thinking, oh, well, thank you for calling. Thank you for that. Now, boy, that seems like a big stretch, but we're going to make that. Here's how. Hi, Mr. Smith. It's James calling with Craig Proctor's office at Remax Omega. And the reason I'm calling is in regards to your request for a list of free distressed sales and bank foreclosure properties. And I just wanted to let you know I prepared and sent that information. I hope that's okay, Mr. Smith. Now think about what I've just done there. I have just explained exactly who I am and why I'm calling. And very carefully, I've made it clear to, in this case, Mr. Smith, that the reason I'm calling is because he requested information from me. And I'm going to be specific. You were on my website last night and you requested information on distress sales and bank foreclosure properties. Just wanted to give you a quick call and let you know I did prepare and send that information to you. I hope that's okay, Mr. Smith. Now remember this, Mr. Smith is a prospect. On his own volition, he requested information on distress sales and bank foreclosures. He was actively looking for real estate. He saw our ad. He read our ad. He responded to our ad. He filled out the details of what properties he was looking for, price range, area. He gave his contact information. He gave his phone number. Do you know why Mr. Smith did all of those things? Because he is a real prospect. People who aren't serious tend to not do those things. So when I say to Mr. Smith, just wanted to give you a quick courtesy call and let you know I sent the distress sales that you asked for on my website, I hope that's okay. Overwhelmingly, if you do this properly, the response that you are going to hear is one of gratitude. Thank you. That's great. Appreciate it. I want you to notice this as well. It kind of sounds like the call is over. And that was done purposefully. Okay, in other words, if the prospect feels like the reason you're calling is to simply acknowledge their request for the information and to confirm that you've sent it or that they received it or what have you, sounds like the call's over. So the prospect says, hey, great, thanks for the call. Yep, I did get that, thank you. What that allows us to do now is ask some probing questions. But I have to tell you, if you're looking at this introduction thinking it doesn't matter, you're making a big mistake. Here's the litmus test. When you call your prospects back If they're not saying thank you or something in the realm of appreciation, then you're not following the introduction. You're not. If the prospects are hanging up on you, if the prospects are saying, I'm busy, call later, if they're doing anything other than saying thank you, it's you. You're not following the introduction as it was intended. Here's what you might be doing. Oh, hi, Mr. Smith. It's James calling with Craig Proctor's office at Remax Omega. How are you folks doing today? I'm not doing well at all. I'm in the middle of something right now. Call me back later. That's not the script. Nowhere in the script does it say, how are you today? Nowhere in the script does it say, are you having a good day? It wasn't an oversight. It's not that Craig thought, well, I would like to exchange courtesies with them, but I'm not going to do that just on a whim. It was done very strategically. If the prospect doesn't know that you're not a telemarketer, they're going to assume that you are one. And the only way that we can differentiate ourselves from a telemarketer is by immediately explaining the reason I'm calling is because you requested information in regards to an over-the-net home evaluation on my website, and I'm letting you know that I prepared and sent that information. I hope that's okay, Mr. or Mrs. Smith. If you do not do that, you will not elicit a reaction of appreciation, and the whole thing goes downhill. We must differentiate ourselves from a telemarketer, and if you do, you'll be greeted with appreciation, which then allows us to move into phase two. And phase two is our fact-finding mission. What Craig did here is he designed questions that determine the timing and motivation of our prospect. But I want you to notice something about these questions. They were designed in a way that allows the prospect to answer and elaborate without feeling threatened. In other words, you got to think of language and how over the phone, the words that we use paint a picture. And we don't have body language, we don't have anything else other than the words that come out of our mouth over the phone. And if we paint a threatening picture, it's very easy for the prospect over the phone to pull back. And so what Craig discovered is this. When you ask a question hypothetically, it allows the prospect to answer the question much more easily because they don't feel threatened. In other words, when I say, hey, Mr. Smith, if you were to make a move, would you be staying here locally or moving out of the area? That's a very different question than, hey, Mr. Smith, where are you moving? Hey, Mr. Smith, where are you moving infers that I think he's planning on moving. I'm a salesperson telling the prospect, hey, you're moving. I know you're moving. When are you moving? That's very threatening to the prospect. So the prospect says, no thanks, just thinking about it. They don't tell me the truth because they feel threatened. The salesperson is going to pressure them into doing something that they're not ready to do or don't want to do. So the prospect automatically pulls back. But when you word it hypothetically and say, hey, Mr. Smith, if you were to make a move, when do you think that might be? Mr. Smith, if you were to make a move, would you be staying here locally or might you be moving out of the area? It's the same question, but because of Craig's understanding of language, what it does is it paints a picture that is far threatening. And if the prospect doesn't feel threatened, guess what they're far more likely to do? Elaborate on their moving plans. And that's all we want to do. We want to determine how good the prospect is. So in asking these questions, that's what we get to the bottom of. Are you folks thinking about making a move in the next 3 to 6 months? If you were to make a move, would you stay here locally or move out of the area? Do you rent or do you currently own the home you live in right now? Do you have a realtor to help you when the time is right? All of these questions, although they're not intrusive, they help us determine how serious the prospect is and what their timing looks like. And if their timing is appropriate, we will book an appointment with that prospect. Now, it's important that we book the right appointment with that prospect. If they're a buyer prospect, that doesn't mean that they don't have a home to sell. If they're a seller prospect, it doesn't mean that they might not want to find something to live in, right? So we've got to be very careful and open to letting the prospect determine the best way to convert the lead. So let me bring in Craig here to talk about this next phase, because arguably this is where you'll have the biggest challenge with the universal script until you reach that level of mastery, where you transition from asking the probing questions to making an offer to the prospect, making an offer that results in an appointment. That transition is where typically you'll have the biggest challenge, where you really have to work at this and identifying this. So let me bring Craig in here, and Craig, let's talk about that a little bit, and let's talk about first the seller offer and how the seller offer came about in offering more than just a home evaluation to prospects.
Well, first of all, good morning, James, and good morning to everyone else.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, well, I want to back up the bus a little bit before we go into the seller offer. Understand that the probing questions are designed, as it says there, to determine the motivation and the timing of the prospect. Now, we have a buyer side of the script and a seller side of the script, and James has talked about the intro. So if a prospect responds to one of your seller campaigns, obviously you go down the right-hand side of the script. You go down the seller follow-up. If it's a prospect that responds to a buyer campaign, maybe they want a list of distress sales, for example, you're obviously going to go down the left side. Okay, so you'll see that the script has a left side and a right side, one for buyer prospects or one for seller prospects. Now, James has done a really good job talking about the introduction, so I'm not going to repeat that. Once we get into these probing questions, the probing questions are all about you basically interviewing the prospect, and you want to interview the prospect by asking these probing questions and carefully listen to how they answer the questions. So that makes sense, right? The reason we're asking the questions is because we want to listen to the answers. Now, you're going to learn by how the prospect answers the questions whether the prospects fit into one of three categories. Okay, so there's three different slots, we'll say, or three different boxes that you're going to slot the prospects into based on how they answer those probing questions. Okay, those 6 questions. They may answer the questions in such a way that you determine that the prospect is really motivated to buy or sell. I mean, they're ready, they're motivated, and they want to buy a home right away, or they want to list a house right away. And of course, what would we want to do in that situation? We would want to make an offer to try to get in front of them, to get together with a prospect that is ready to act right now. Now, you'll notice we're asking a very important question in that situation where you've determined, hey, this is someone that wants to absolutely buy or sell. If you take a look on the right-hand side of the script at question 5, we're asking, would you prefer to buy before selling your home? Okay, this is a very important question because we want to know the answer to that. Just because the prospect responded to a seller campaign doesn't necessarily mean that they're a sell first prospect. Everybody understands that, right?
Yep.
So if I asked James, if you were my prospect, James, I said, no, James, basically, do you prefer to buy your home before putting your home up for sale? Or would you prefer to get the for sale sign up on your house before you even look around? How James answers that question is going to dictate which offer I'm going to make below. And Andrea, if you could highlight the 2 offers below, James is going to answer that question, and he's going to tell me whether he's a sell first guy or a buy first guy. So James could say, well, actually, I would like to look around at houses before I even consider putting my home on the market.
Yep.
Well, if James answered that way, well, I'm not going to be going into the right-hand corner and making the sell first offer. However, many of you make that mistake. And you may articulate a very good sell first offer. You could communicate a really awesome offer, but let's agree, if that's not where the prospect's head's at, your offer is going to fall on deaf ears. You might want to write this down. Even the world's greatest offer will fall on deaf ears if that's not where the prospect's head's at. I just made that up, but it's true, right? It's a good one to write down because, and that's a mistake I made earlier in my career, is I would just assume that because the prospect responded to, let's say, the online home evaluation or the area home sales report, okay, they responded to a seller campaign, therefore I should just try to get in the door to, give my listing presentation. But if that's not where the prospect's head's at, if they would rather look around at houses before they even consider putting their home on the market, if they tell me that, why do they tell me? Because I asked the question, are you a buy first guy or a sell first guy? If James says he'd rather look around at homes before he even considers putting his home on the market, I'm going to make the buy first offer. If James said, well, I wouldn't even dream of looking around and getting excited about other homes before I list my home for sale, well, knowing that information, I'm going to make the sell first offer. Now, what's the other offers that we could make? Okay, so we're going to make an offer to meet with the buyer or seller if they're ready to act. Well, the opposite of ready to act would be they don't represent a prospect at all. You ask these probing questions and the prospect is not that motivated at all, or their timing is way off. They might say, well, I'm not going to list my home for 3 years. I'm not going to make a move for 3 years. You're probably not going to follow up with somebody like that. Okay, or how about this? They're rude to you. Their best friend or a relative is a real estate agent. So you've got my permission to not follow up with those people. What did I say at the super conference? I said, far too many of you spend far too much time with buyers and sellers that you should just blow off right from the get-go. And I also said, my goal for all of you is I want you to generate so many leads, you don't have to worry about prospects like that. So those prospects, we're just going to delete. We're not going to worry about following up with them. Okay, so that leaves us with one more category. So I want everyone to think about this. We've got clients that answer the probing questions in such a way we're led to believe that they're ready to act now, and we're going to make a buy offer or a sell offer. We've got clients that are not that motivated. They're rude. No matter what we do or say, they're never going to list with us. They represent no business at all. The big opportunity in the middle are the people that are going to buy or sell, but not yet. They might be 3 months out. They might be 6 months out. So how do we approach those? Well, if we go to question 6 on the right-hand side, Andrea is going to highlight that. If James answered those probing questions in such a way that I realize, well, James might be a good prospect. He's eventually going to sell his home, but he's not going to sell his house now, so there's no reason meeting with him. It might be 6 months down the road. I would say, James, would it be okay if I followed up with you at a later time? Now, if James said no, never call me again, then I'm going to respect that. We call this permission marketing. But in most cases, the prospect will say yes, to which you're going to say, well, when would be a good time for me to call you back? Now, it's really important that you ask that question. James, as you know, like a dummy, for years and years and years early in my career, I would ask the first question. I'd say, James, would it be okay if I followed up with you at a later time? And if James said yes, I would just guess. I would make a subjective decision. I would guess, well, from the way that James answered those questions, I'm just going to assume he's probably not going to do anything till such and such a time. So I would subjectively just guess and schedule a follow-up call based on my gut feeling. Well, that's really stupid, and I lost a lot of business because I would guess incorrectly. Guessing is not a very good idea. So once we ask the prospect, would it be okay if I followed up with you at a later time? If they say yes, the obvious next question to ask is, well, great, James, when do you think would be a good time for me to do that? When would be a good time for me to follow up with you? Now, whatever time frame they give you, I'm going to recommend that you folks always cut it in half. As James indicated earlier, they see us as salespeople, right? And who's a salesperson? A salesperson is somebody that makes me do something I don't want to do. So what quite often happens is they arbitrarily tell us a time frame that's really longer than it is. So the guy that's thinking of selling his home in 6 months, or 3 months rather, tells us 6 months. So whatever time frame they tell you, cut it in half, just as insurance. I've lost a lot of money in this business by calling back prospects a little bit too late. But I've never lost any money in this business by calling prospects a little bit too early. So we want to err on the side of caution. Now, I want everyone to think about this. In all the years that you've been in real estate, of 100% of all the prospects that you've ever talked to, as long as you've been doing this, which category do most of the prospects fit in? They fit in the middle category. They're not ready to buy or sell today. They're not people that have a real estate agent or are never going to work with us, not using this system anyway. You're going to find that the majority of prospects you speak to are good prospects in the fact that they're going to buy or sell, but they're just not ready yet. And this is the Achilles heel that most agents have is, most agents don't have an automatic lead generation system like this, but even fewer realtors have an effective follow-up system. So this is where the money is. So if you haven't heard anything that James has said today, you haven't heard anything that I've said, understand that this is where the money is. Okay, that the majority of people you talk to are going to say something like this. They're going to say, I am thinking of selling, but it's going to be 3 months from now, or it's going to be 6 months from now. They may even tell you exactly why they're going to move. They're going to tell you when, and they're going to tell you why. Well, it doesn't get much better than that, right? I referred to these prospects as golden prospects. So do you guys understand what I'm saying? You follow up with the prospect, and the prospect says, we're absolutely going to be selling our home. We bought new construction. We won't be listing our home until January. So you have to do the right things between now and January, or you're probably going to lose that business. Or you speak to a lady and she says, I'm going through a marriage separation. Like, there's no doubt that we're selling the house. We are. But we're dealing with the lawyers, and this might be 3 or 4 months, this process, before we're in a position to list the home. And you talk to another guy who says, 100% I'm selling. I've been transferred. I need to be in Boston in 4 months. Okay, so those are 3 examples, real world examples of prospects that are open to working with you. They're upfront telling you when they're moving, why they're moving, where they're moving. You've got all that information. Wouldn't it be a shame to lose that business? So we're going to help you on these Thursday role play follow-up calls, help you plug the hole in your bucket. Most of you have a massive hole in your bucket. And that's why you got to generate so many leads, because your follow-up and conversion is not very effective. So that's the idea behind the probing questions. We're basically interviewing the prospects that have called you on their own volition. As James says, normal people don't do this, right? The information we offer is only of interest to real prospects. And for those of you that have phone phobia, I get it. If you've been in a Mike Ferry program and you're cold calling, you're a sweat hog, I understand how even looking at the telephone could be a huge turnoff. And if you've done any of that stuff, understand using our programs like a walk in the park. You're not cold calling. You're not initiating any contact with these prospects. You're simply returning an inquiry that the prospects made of you. And the prospect has to jump all through these hoops to get to you. They have to see the ad. They have to respond to the ad. They have to visit the website or go to the hotline. They have to leave all their contact information. And you're simply calling them back saying, hey, I'm doing what you wanted me to do. I'm following up on your inquiry. And then you go right into the probing questions and you determine, okay, is this a now prospect? Is this a future prospect? Or is this no business at all? It's that simple. If they are a prospect that wants to act now, let's talk about the offers. Now, I want you to think about this. If we make a bad offer, okay, if our offer, the words that come out of our mouth, if they're crummy words, even a prospect that's motivated to buy or sell will probably say no. And that's happened to many of you before, where really good prospects seem not to be that motivated because, frankly, the words that come out of your mouth are not that motivating. So they say no to you. You don't get to meet with them. And you see, in a week, they've listed their home with somebody else. So it seems to me that if we want to compel buyers and sellers to meet with us, and I use the word compel purposely because you can't force a buyer or seller to meet with you, right? You can't make them meet with you. So all you've got as a realtor are the words that come out of your mouth. The better the words are, the more appointments you're going to get. So we're going to show you the ultimate offers to make buyers and sellers. Well, let's talk about that, James. Let's talk about what are the ultimate offers. What is it that every buyer in the world wants? I've been doing this for 25 years.
A great deal.
A great deal. Would everyone agree with that? I have never in 25 years had anyone call me up and say, hey, Craig, I see you've got a list of distress sales and fixer-uppers and great deals. Hey, I'm the opposite kind of buyer. I'm actually looking for a list of bad deals. Do you have a list of overpriced properties or perhaps homes that are stale on the market and haven't sold?
Properties that have been overlooked by all the other buyers because they're just not very attractive.
Right. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so, we're being sarcastic here. But look, what buyers want are houses. And what buyers understand is to get a good deal on these houses, they have to be Johnny on the spot. So if you take a look at our offer, and we're going to go through this word for word with you, this buy first offer, what we're offering buyers, and you might want to write this down, is we're offering them what they perceive to be proprietary information. Proprietary information. I hope everyone's got their pen out. Write that down. Proprietary information. And we're offering priority access to this proprietary information. Okay, so here's what we're not saying to buyers. James, I'd like you to be my buyer. Hey, James, I could get you a list of all the same homes you could get anywhere else, and I'm going to send them to you after the fact. Would you be interested in that?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. So, by the way, that's what the buyers think of real estate agents, right? You know that, right? They think that the same information they can get from you, they can just get online themselves. Why do I need a real estate agent? I can just go online. Like if you were to ask a poll buyers, that's what they'd say. Well, if you said to a buyer, how do I get information on houses? They'd say, well, you go online. That's how you find houses. They don't say you go to a real estate agent. Okay, so they want, we're going to do a very good job of communicating to all the buyers we speak to that we have what they want. We have proprietary information. We have difficult to find homes, and we're going to give them priority access. We're going to get the information to them faster. Why? So they can beat out other buyers to all these great buys. Now, you may say, well, yeah, every buyer would want that. Why wouldn't a buyer want it? Well, a buyer might still not want that great offer if they fear cost or obligation. So that's why we're going to keep reminding the prospect, guess what? Getting the proprietary information and getting priority access on the hot deals is free of charge. It will never cost you a penny, and you're never obligated to buy a home. Okay, so now let's do a role play, James, of the actual offer. Okay, that's the theory behind it. Let's show you what it sounds like. So James, in this example, he's responded to a buyer campaign. I've done the introduction. I've asked the probing questions, and I determined, hey, you know what? Sounds like, by the way James answered these questions, that he's like ready to go look at homes and buy something. So James is somebody I'd like to meet with. So I would say, James, would you like me to email you daily updates of all the homes that match your home buying criteria from all the real estate companies? Okay, my list includes bank foreclosures, company-owned properties, and other distress sales. It's a free service, and of course, you're never obligated to buy a home. Do you think that would interest you?
Sure, but is that any different from what I'm getting from another agent?
Beautiful. Okay, so James has given us what we know is an objection. Now, what you're going to find is there's only about 8 or 9 objections you're going to get. Here's the question. Would all of you feel a lot more confident on the phone if you knew what those objections were and James and I were to teach you how to handle them? So this is a very common sense objection, right? James is saying, well, I'm already getting information. In fact, James might say, you know, Craig, I already have a realtor emailing me properties, so I think I'm good. Now, here's how I'm going to handle this. James, I'm not sure where you're getting your information, or I'm not sure what information the other realtor is sending you, but my list includes bank foreclosures, company-owned properties, and other distress sales. Would you like to get information on those as well? So let's stop there for a minute. I'm not saying to James, hey, don't go online and search. I'm not saying to James, hey, stop getting the information from the other realtors. What I am doing, though, is I'm creating massive doubt. The biggest fear that every buyer has is that they're going to miss out on the perfect home. So my offer to James is, hey, James, I'm not sure what the other realtors are sending you, but my list includes bank foreclosures, company-owned properties, and distress. Would you like to get information on those as well? Well, here's what the buyer says. Well, gee, I don't know what the other agent's sending me. I think I'm getting them all, but Craig's willing to send me his list of homes too, and it's free of obligation. You know, it's free of charge. There's no obligation. So what happens is the buyer says yes, and that's what we want to do. We want to get the buyer to say, yes, I would like to get that information. I want to get your list too. Okay, now that you get the buyer to say yes, this is when we're going to come back with commitment. Not until they say yes. So imagine James is backed into the corner now. I've offered him the free list of homes. It sounds pretty delicious. And James, like most of the buyers, says, yes, I want that. That's when I come back with, well, James, when can we get together for about 20 minutes or so I can take down exactly what you're looking for? Now, James, I'd like you to try to fight me on that.
Well, Craig, you know, I did go onto your website and I filled out all that information. If you take a look there, you'll have everything that you're looking for. Okay, so would everyone agree that that's a very common sense objection that the buyers would likely have? They might say, hey, I already went onto your website and I filled out all the information. Or they might say, hey, why do we need to meet? I can tell you right now what I'm looking for. Or they might say, I could email you my criteria. Okay, so here's how we're going to handle this. I'm going to say, well, James, I want to do a good job for you. Rather than me emailing you hundreds of homes which may or may not match your criteria, or even worse, risking out missing out on the perfect home, if we can get together for about 20 minutes, I can take down exactly what you're looking for. You know, I want to have the same great understanding that you have. A good time for us to meet, days or evenings. Try to fight me again, James. You know what? Probably evenings, but I better talk to my wife first. I'm not sure what her schedule looks like, so can I give you a call back when I talk to my wife?
This is a very common objection. In fact, all of you folks that are married, you know you've used this before. Hey, you know, I'd love to meet with you, but I've got to speak to my husband or wife. Everyone who's married loves it. It's one of the best parts about being married. You can always say, use this as an excuse. I got to talk to my wife or my husband. Okay, so another excuse they might give is I need to check my work schedule. So here's how we're going to handle this. Now, we've got to give James the benefit of the doubt because maybe he really does need to check his schedule with his wife before he agrees to meet with me. Or maybe James actually does need to check his work schedule before he sets a time to meet with me. So I'm going to give James the benefit of the doubt, and I am going to respond with what I believe is a reasonable solution to this problem. James is saying, hey, Craig, I would love to meet with you, but I got to check with my wife. So I come back with this. Well, James, why don't we do this? Why don't we at least set up a tentative time to meet? And if after you speak with your wife that time doesn't work, just give me a call back and we can change the time. But if I don't hear from you, I'll see you Thursday night at 7. How does that sound?
Yeah,
Now,
that sounds fine.
Okay, well, if James is actually sincere about meeting me, that is a reasonable solution to this problem. However, if James was just using his wife as an excuse to not meet with me, we're going to find that when I've handled this objection with a reasonable solution, James will immediately invent yet another reason why he can't meet with me. He'll invent another objection. And you'll hear the prospect say something like this. Well, gee, I don't know if we're quite ready to meet with a realtor yet. Or I don't know if we're quite ready for this yet. How about I got your contact information, Craig. How about I call you back when we're ready? That's a bad sign. Okay? Is the prospect's going to keep inventing objections because they're really not sincere about meeting with us at all. Now, the harder the prospect fights us, the more we don't want the prospect. Okay, what did I say? All the way through the conference on the weekend, I said, we want to generate slightly more buyers and sellers than we could possibly handle. And if that was true for you, if you had more buyers and sellers that you could handle, who would you choose to work with? Well, you would choose to work with the most motivated, the most sincere, the most ready to act buyers and sellers, prospects that will do things your way, and you would reject the prospects that fight you. The more they resist, the more you don't want them. So when they really fight you, or they're rude to you, or they're simply not motivated, or their timing's way off in the future, the answer is thanks and have a nice day. Now, James and I want you to convert as many as possible. So we're going to work with you on that offer to make you really, really good at the offer. So buyers and sellers want to meet with you. You don't have to be an arm twister. They're actually compelled by the words that come out of your mouth to want to meet with you. They don't see you as a commodity. They don't see you as just offering what they can get on their own from the internet or what they can just get from any real estate agent. Now, let's go back to the seller offer. Let's say when I asked James that important question, in the probing questions, we asked that important question, James, would you prefer to buy first or sell first? Let's say in this example, James says, well, I would want to sell first. I wouldn't even dream of running around looking at homes and before I got my home sold. I want to sell my home first. Well, we're not going to talk about looking around at properties or emailing James properties. No way. In this example, we're going to go straight to the sell first offer, and Andrea is going to highlight that now. Now, we can't have a lame offer. If your offer to sellers is, hey, would you like to get an evaluation of what your home would sell for? That's a very weak offer. And don't be surprised when most sellers say, hey, thanks, but no thanks. I already know what my house is worth. And it is true today that many of the sellers know more about what's going on in their neighborhood than we do. So if that's your big offer to sellers, hey, we can give you a computerized analysis or a free market evaluation. That's a pretty weak offer. What you're going to find when you've got a weak offer is that offer is rejected. Okay? It doesn't compel sellers to want to meet with you at all. So what we need to do is we need to have an offer that's wider than that. We need to offer a seller so many things that they see value in meeting with us. So this is what the offer looks like. I'd say, James, would you like a free evaluation to determine what your home would sell for all in one breath? Also, I can give you tips on what to do, what not to do to sell your home for sale for the most amount of money. And we can go over all the various closing costs you'll incur so you'll know exactly what you're going to have left in your pocket after all expenses. It's a free of charge and obligates you to nothing. Would that sound helpful? You know, when would be a good time to meet, days or evenings? So let's have a look at all the things we're offering the seller. We're offering them an accurate assessment of what their home is worth. We're offering to give them information on what to do and what not to do to sell their home for the most amount of money. And what I love about that one, folks, is it does require an in-home visit. It's pretty difficult to give someone advice on what to do and what not to do to prepare their home for sale if you don't look at their house, right? So this is going to help you get in front of them at their kitchen table. Also, they're always asking us about our fees and the net sheet, so we're going to go through that. Most of you do that now. You might even want to throw in this. If they're buying and selling, you might even want to say, and we can also talk about timing and when's a good time to do this, and answer any other questions that you have. So let me do the offer right from the top. I'm going to ad-lib it a bit, but this is what it should sound like. James, would you like a free evaluation to determine what your home would sell for? Also, I can give you some tips on what to do and what not to do to sell your home for money. We could go over all the various closing costs you're going to incur, so you're going to know exactly what you're going to net in your pocket after all the expenses. We could talk about timing and when's a good time for you to do this, and answer any of the questions that you have. It's meeting with me is free of charge, and you're never obligated to do anything. Does that sound like it might be helpful? Great. When's a good time to meet, days or evenings?
Yeah, evenings is good.
Right. Okay. So I think what we ought to do now is take some questions.
Anna Shaw's asking this. Hey, I'm having a real hard time getting in touch with prospects. Sometimes I have to call them several times. Sometimes I call them several times in a row. However, I find that sometimes they get annoyed when I do this. What do you suggest I do? I don't want to annoy a potential prospect. Okay, so we haven't made a big deal about this yet, and we need to make a big deal. James, explain why it's important that we just don't call the prospect and leave them a voicemail message. Hi, this is Craig Proctor with ABC Realty. I received your request for whatever, and please give me a call back. Why doesn't that work?
Yeah, and this is the bottom line is that doesn't work. It doesn't cause the prospect to call you back. So if the question is, should I leave a voicemail? The answer is no. And well, why? Because it doesn't work. It doesn't cause the prospect to call you back. So therefore, the only alternative is that we need to do everything we can to get the prospect to answer the phone. Now, will every prospect answer the phone? Certainly not. However, if you do this properly, 75%, 80% of them you will reach. I'm not saying necessarily on the very first attempt, but you will reach them. If you leave a message, you will reduce the chances of the prospect answering the phone because now they know that it's a real estate salesperson calling them. And people don't want to talk to salespeople.
Let's look at what actually happens. Let's say that somebody was to call your cell phone right now. What's the first thing you would look at?
Who's calling?
The caller ID.
Yeah, look at who's calling.
Okay, now.
And even more so with my home phone.
Right,
because
so if
I got to tell you, 8 out of 10 calls that come to my home phone are not for me. They're a mistake. Or it's like some sort of robot calling or telemarketer. It's not a personal call to me 8 out of 10 times. So we're going to leave it, Craig. There's something that you say, I'm not sure you said it to our new group, and that is when voicemail was invented, it was really helpful because now we would never miss a call. Now we have voicemail so that we never have to take a call. So we're well aware of the reality of this.
In the 1970s, people had answering machines. Why? Because they didn't want to miss a call. Here, people have caller ID because they don't want to take a call. They want it to go to voicemail. So if you're calling from your RE/MAX office, your Century 21 office, your Prudential office, your Keller Williams office, and on the prospect's caller ID, it says RE/MAX, Century 21, Prudential, Keller Williams, they're probably not going to answer the phone. So it's important that you make these calls. I would recommend you make them from your home office or a phone inside your real estate office. It's not going to say, yes, your cell phone.
Right.
Now, and also, James and I are not in any way suggesting that people aren't difficult to reach. You may have to call the prospect several times a day over several days to reach them, and still you're not going to reach everyone. And that, again, is why we need to generate lots and lots of leads, is because you are just not going to reach them all. Some of them are going to be too difficult to reach.
Okay, let me I think what our member here is saying is that one of the techniques that she uses is you call the prospect, it goes to voicemail. You hang up, and then you call them back again. And now think of yourself in that position. You got a phone call from a local telephone number, not a telemarketer, not a company, not a blocked call, a phone number from your area code, from your prefix. You get this phone call. It goes to voicemail. They don't leave a voicemail message. A minute later, the phone rings again, same number. Would you be curious enough that maybe you would answer the phone? Now, some of you are saying, no, I wouldn't, but a lot of you are saying, sure, yeah, I would. I'm saying, yeah, I would do that. Okay, now, here's really what we're talking about. If the prospect answers the phone, which many of them will, and they sound like they're a little agitated at this, how do we combat that? And the answer is, that's exactly what the introduction was designed to do. So watch this, Craig. I want you to be super pissed off that I called you twice. Hi, may I speak with Craig, please?
Hey, are you the person that just called here a minute ago?
Yes, I am. Is this Craig?
Yes. Why do you keep calling?
Craig, the reason I'm calling you is I received your request on my website for the free list of distress sale bank foreclosure deals in the area, and I was just trying to reach you to let you know that I did receive your request, and I'm putting together those properties for you immediately. I'm going to get those out to you right away, and I just wanted to make sure that was okay with you.
Yeah, but I didn't know that this information was being offered by a realtor.
Yeah, absolutely it is. By the way, Craig, are you thinking about making a move in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, we've been talking about it, but we're not 100% sure we're going to do it.
Yeah, and if you were to move, would you be staying locally, or would you be considering moving out of the area?
Well, I got to say the drive is killing us. My commute is too long, and I've got to move closer to work.
Okay, so any idea when that might be?
Well, as soon as we find the right place. I mean, like I said, I can't keep doing this. I'm getting home at 7 o'clock at night. I've got no life. So as soon as we find something that we like that's closer to work, I'm motivated to do that.
Yeah, and do you rent right now, or do you currently own the home you live in?
Yeah, we're renting right now. So okay. I also want to get in before the interest rates go up.
Right. Do you have a realtor to help you when the time is right?
My wife, she works with this lady whose husband's a realtor, and he's been sending us a bunch of houses that are, in the area closer to work.
I see. And are you 100% committed to working with him exclusively?
Well, I mean, not really. I've never even met the guy before. It's just, like you said, it's someone. My wife works with his wife, so.
Okay. Would you like me to email you every day all of the great deals that come on the market from all the various real estate companies that perfectly match what you're looking for? I'm going to make sure to include bank foreclosures, company-owned properties, distress sales, all the great deals. As long as they match what you're looking for, I'll email them to you every day, absolutely free, no obligation to buy anything. Would that make looking a little easier for you, Craig?
Well, isn't that what I'm already getting from this other guy?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're getting from that other guy. What I'm going to focus on are the great deals, and I'm going to make sure that those great deals are in your email inbox the moment they hit the market. Craig, I couldn't help but to notice that you responded to my ad online, which shows me that what you're getting from the other agent isn't what you're looking for. Otherwise, you wouldn't have been looking, where I ran my ad. If you
I don't know how it works. I mean, this guy's sending me properties, but I don't want to miss out on any. So yeah, I've been looking around on my own because, like I said, I'm motivated. I can't stand doing this commute for much longer. So you're right. Whatever this guy's been sending me, obviously we haven't found the right one, and that's why that's why I responded.
Craig, let me ask you, when do you have 15 or 20 minutes to sit down with me and do a really good job of determining what you're looking for? Would something in the evenings be better? Something on the weekends?
Well, it'd have to be evenings. Like I said, I don't get home from work till 7 o'clock, and this is killing me. So yeah, I don't get home before 7, so it'd have to be after that. So
what would be better, this evening or tomorrow evening? What would work better for you?
Well, look, why can't I just tell you what I'm looking for over the phone? Like, I know what I'm looking for. I want a 4-bedroom. I want a 2-story. I want it in this zip code or that zip code.
Hey, Craig,
send me all the ones that look like that.
Let me just stop you right there. Here's why. It's really important that I do a great job for you, and I'm sure it's important for you as well. If we can sit down together for 15 or 20 minutes, I can accurately take down exactly what you're looking for so we don't miss out on the perfect property, most importantly, and so that I'm not, like this other realtor, sending you properties that really don't match what you're looking for. There is no cost. I will not charge you any money. There's no obligation for you to buy a property, but I want to do a good job for you. You want me to do a good job for you. Let's sit down for 15 minutes at a convenient time for you, and we'll go over your criteria. Would you reconsider a brief appointment, days, evenings, after 7? What would work best for you, Craig?
Well, look, when we get together, do I have to sign something?
You do not have to sign anything. You don't have to do anything at all. You're under no obligation to buy anything. You will not pay me a nickel. I'm simply helping you find what you're looking for, because what you're doing right now to find it isn't working for you.
Okay. Look, I'm motivated. I get it. Okay, so look, I'm going to have to talk to my wife before I set a time, so let me do that, and I'll call you back.
Okay, why don't we do this first? Let's set up a tentative time, and if you talk to your wife and she, says that doesn't work, then we can reschedule it. But if you speak to your wife and she says, yeah, that works, then we've got a time, we're set, and we'll see you then. So what tentatively would be good for you? Something tomorrow evening or on the weekend?
Okay, now let's stop there because you've done a great job. Let's play the audio file that was sent to us, Andrea. This is a actual live call between one of our members and a real live prospect.
Hello?
Hi, is this Penny?
Yes, it is.
Hi, Penny. It's Colleen Bush phoning from RE/MAX. And just following up on your request for the Hamilton distress sales, just letting you know we're working on that, and we'll be sending that out in an email for you later today, okay?
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Penny, are you planning on making a move in the next 3 to 6 months?
Well, we're hoping to look for something and see, because I'm anxious to get my parents moved up here from Timmins.
Oh, wow. Okay. And are you currently renting or owning right now?
We're renting.
Okay. All right. And so do you want to specifically stay in the same area, just the Hamilton area, or are you open to other areas?
No, we prefer to stay in Hamilton, preferably up on the mountain.
Okay. All right. Good. And if you were to move, like, do you have a time frame as far as, is it the ASAP, basically?
Oh, it's not ASAP. Preferably before this.
Okay. All right. And, just to let you know, I guess we can certainly help you, but do you have anybody at this time helping you to find a place?
No, we don't.
Okay. So just to let you know, we'll be sending out a list of everything that's available. We'll tailor it to the Hamilton Mountain. But so we can do a really good job for you, what we like to do is set it up so you can receive all the emails from all the different real estate companies, including the bank foreclosures, the company-owned properties, the distress sales, and even properties that haven't even reached the market yet. And again, this service is absolutely free. You're never obligated to buy a home. Would that be something you'd be interested in?
Definitely.
Okay, well, great. And Penny, just so we can totally make this list for you, when would you and your husband be available for 20 minutes just to take down exactly what you're looking for so that we don't miss out on the perfect home for you?
Okay, it's not my husband, it's my son.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay. It's my son and I that are buying together, and I have to work it out with his schedule because he's at work, so I'm not sure what day he's off.
Okay. Well, just to let you know, we're flexible. We're days, evenings, weekends, whatever works best for you. And, even if you wanted to tentatively put it out there to say whatever, if Saturday works out in the afternoon, we can pencil it in. And if you need to cancel, no problem. At least it gives you something to work with. Would that work for you, Saturday morning or afternoon?
He works Saturday, but if Saturday evening is good, that would be perfect.
Okay. All right. And what time Saturday evening works for you?
Can we stay around between 6?
6? Okay. All right. Let's say 6 o'clock. And what I'll do, Penny, is I'll send you a confirmation with our phone number or email. And if anything changes, just give us a call. But otherwise, we'll set it up for Saturday at 6. And that way we'll be able to get down, all the things that are important to you and your son and your parents. And that way you will be on autopilot from then on. It will just come automatically to your inbox on a daily basis. So it really gives you great access, priority access to all the brand new homes. So great way to go forward. Okay, so if you have any questions or anything before that, just let us know. And Just curious, have you been to the bank at all just to get pre-qualified by any chance?
Yes, we're just waiting for the bank to give us that information. And we've talked to them. We have our down payment and everything. So it's just a matter of the bank doing their check or whatever it is. But we didn't seem like we had a problem because we had a substantial down payment. So
fantastic. Well, I'll tell you, you're well on your way, because most people forget about that first, and that's really a great place to start, is just to get the financing out of the way. And then the fun part is now kind of tailor making your list to what you'd like, and then going out to look. So we look forward to seeing you on Saturday, and if anything, like I said, changes, just give us a quick shout at the office then. Okay?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Penny. Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye.
And that's how easy it is. Okay, so that was Colleen Bush. Colleen and Craig Bush are actually coaches. They're from Hamilton, Ontario. Been with the program for a number of years.
So we've covered enough for today. I apologize we didn't get to all of the questions, but I do realize this. When we get into deeper waters here, the more we get into this, the more questions you're going to have. And the questions, of course, will get better and better and better. And so will our answers get better and better and better the deeper we get into this. Here's what I'm going to recommend in finishing up our role play session. All of you should memorize the script. You're going to start by memorizing it. Now, that's going to sound a little bit goofy to you, because when you're going to be reading the script basically when you talk to prospects. And at first you're going to think, well, this is awkward because, these are not my words. These are Craig's words. But as you memorize it, as you internalize it, think about this. If you're saying the same things over and over again, you're going to become really, really good at the script. And pretty soon you won't see these as Craig's words anymore. They'll become your words. As you internalize this, this will be your script. Okay. And you won't have to memorize it. In fact, you're going to understand it. You're going to understand the idea behind the script. And if you really understand the script and what we're trying to accomplish, and you really believe in the offers that you're making, so you're speaking with conviction, you've got confidence, you've got conviction, you're not reading, you don't sound like a telemarketer, you're going to book a lot of appointments, and that's going to give you massive confidence. So it all works hand in hand. It all hooks together.
So we're going to wrap it up because we're out of time. We've had a great week. We've had a bunch of successful webinars, but next week we get into this in earnest. We roll up our sleeves. It all starts on Monday with our Helpline webinar, and that's at 11 a.m. On the East Coast. So your homework over the weekend, for those of you that are new, is to check out all the amazing resources at Craig Proctor Coaching. Okay, check it out. Write down all your questions. Come prepared for Monday's Helpline, and James and I will answer as many questions as we possibly can during that 90 minutes.
Yeah, we can talk about anything you want, anything at all. So take some time over the weekend to explore the coaching site and write down all your questions, have them ready, and we'll address all of them on Monday morning.
Perfect. All right. Well, everyone have a fantastic weekend, and we'll pick it up on Monday morning.